ago, Gabriel Garcia Marquez released a book entitled Love in the Time of Cholera. Well, think about this as love in the time of COVID-19, because that is the call. I've been thinking, I imagine you've been thinking, there's a lot of changes. What's constant? A lot of changes, different things that are expected of us, different protocols. My life looks a whole lot different than it looked a couple weeks ago. Well, what am I supposed to do now? Well, what your life is and my life is, it's your context for trust. It's your context for obedience. That's the Christian life, and that hasn't changed. Your context looks a little bit different, but your life has always been the situation in which God has placed you to trust Him, in which God has placed you to love other people. And 1 Corinthians 13 it's a description of how you're to treat other people. Paul wrote this because there was all sorts of disunity within the Corinthian congregation. And as I think about what's going on now, I fear the possibility of a lot of different divisions, because there's a lot of different thoughts, and rightly so, about, well, what is to be done. There's a lot at stake. And so what's important in my mind is that we treat each other with what Paul talks about here, 1 Corinthians 13. And what I'm going to do is just walk our way through the text and think, how should we live now? And we should live in the way we should always live, which is loving our neighbor as ourself. So we're going to work through all the different points. First is love is patient. You're gonna need to show long suffering with people, because people's quirks are gonna become perhaps more pronounced. You might be cooped up with your kids all day in a new way. You might have to put up with somebody in the home all day who's usually at work. If you're on a board, if you're on a church council, you're gonna perhaps having a whole lot of different meetings with folks, some of whom might rub you the wrong way at times. You're going to need to show long suffering and patience with one another. And the way to do that is you have to remember, okay, God's been very, very patient with me. And a time like this is not really not the best time to criticize somebody's shortcomings by any means, because it's a crisis. They're not going to learn anything from the way that you criticize them. The only effect is going to be discord on your relationship. So just have an understanding that you're going to need to be bearing with other people patiently right now. And second, love is kind. In many ways, what 1 Corinthians 13 does is it takes the love that's just very familiar, very normal for you and I with our loved ones, and it applies it out to everybody. So you treat everybody as if they're your loved ones. So you treat other people as if, okay, how would I treat my kids? And that's how you treat other people. How would I treat my parents? No, this is how you treat other people. So let's say school in your area is canceled. Well, let's say that you were thinking about your own kids, and they've got kids, and their school's canceled. What would you do to help your kids out now that their kids are home all day long? Well, how could you express that to other people in your congregation whose kids are now home? Or thinking about those who have to keep working in different ways, thinking about those on farms, those in hospitals, various government positions, those in grocery stores, and a whole lot of other places. You might work from home, but a whole lot of people aren't. And what kindnesses could you show them? What would you show them if they were part of your family? Third, love does not envy. You might have to make some hard decisions as a result, and you might find yourself envious of people who don't have to make this hard decision. And if only I wasn't on the city council right now, I want to be the one in the crosshairs. Well, God's placed you in this position right now. Or you might find yourself envious of those who get to make these decisions. I want to make that decision that he made. So if you find yourself there, Don't be envious because God hasn't placed you in that position right now. You might find yourself envying those who get to work from home. You might find yourself envious of those who get to leave home to work. You might find yourself wishing that you were somebody else in this situation. And if you've ever, we all do that, but no good comes from that. You can't love somebody and envy somebody at the same time. So fourth, love does not boast. You might have seen all of this coming weeks ago, and you might have planned accordingly. Well, don't trumpet your foresight. Or you might have a temperament that's rarely ruffled, and other people are in a panic. Okay, well, don't boast about the way that God's wired you, as if you wired yourself that way. And if you're a Christian, please don't boast about your faith in such a way that makes you seem immune from the problems of other people. Right? Boasting in the Lord, it's magnifying Him. It's not magnifying yourself for being smart enough to have faith in God. This crisis, this is an opportunity for other people to find refuge in God. And that's the refuge they need. That's the refuge you always need. It's not an opportunity for Christians to show somehow we're in the right. Fifth, love is not proud. We leaders should take our responsibilities seriously, but not ourselves seriously. That's always one of the dangers in times of crises, is leaders suddenly grow quite prideful. Because after all, we're making important decisions. That's an opportunity for pride. You take your responsibilities seriously. You don't take yourself seriously. All right, you're not God's gift to the world in this situation. Jesus already filled that role for all situations. Pride will also lead you to act as if you're the center of this situation. As if other people's concerns that aren't your concerns aren't really important. And as if your concerns are really the only ones that are important. For example, a healthy young man like myself would do well to recognize that an 85-year-old man is going to have very different concerns for me right now. And his concerns are valid, and he would do well to remember, okay, I've got my own particular concerns with 4 little kids at home. And my concerns are valid. A small business owner, he's got very different concerns right now from somebody who doesn't own a business. And a college senior who suddenly finds her college experience, boom, it's over. She's got her own concerns. So pride tempts us to treat our situation as if it was normative. And it's not. Sixth, love is not self-seeking. Now, it's wise to care for yourself. It's wise to care for your family. I got 2 kids that are in diapers. I saw some baby wipes. I bought them. Right? I don't think that's self-seeking. Hoarding is self-seeking. Caring exclusively for your welfare, for the welfare of your loved ones, is self-seeking. Again, it's the sign that your circle of loved ones has grown too small. If your loved ones is you and just those closest to you, Paul would say, well, no, you treat others with that love. So consider the needs of others in your church, in your community. COVID-19 doesn't obviate your responsibilities and obligations to love your neighbor as yourself. The excess of self-seeking lies in this, said Calvin. If our desire for our own advantage calls us off from that concern which God has commanded us to have for our neighbors. So if you find yourself saying, I've got obligations before God to love others as I love myself, and I'm not going to meet any of this because of this disease, you got to take a step back and ask yourself some questions. Seventh, love is not easily angered. You might find yourself stressed out by different decisions you need to make, different changes that are going on right now. You got to find a way to deal with that stress, because if you don't deal with that stress, you're going to unleash it on others in anger. Right? You want to act in a reasonable way. This 1 Corinthians 13 love is reasonable. It's not touchy with a blistering temper, barely hidden beneath the surface of a respectable facade, just waiting for an offense, real or imagined, at which to take umbrage, as D.A. Carson put it. It's not easily stirred up to disputes, as Calvin put it. doesn't overreact, as Anthony Thistleton put it. And Wayne Mack agrees his rendition of 1 Corinthians 13. He says, love doesn't fly off the handle. Love doesn't have a fit. All right, you might be under a lot of stress right now, so you got to deal with it. Otherwise, you're going to deal with others poorly. 8th is love does not keep a record of wrongs. If you've been keeping records of wrongs with others, you need to put that to death. You need to put it to death because, of course, the Lord said the way that you treat others is the way that you're inviting Him to treat you. But okay, think if you're on a board and you've been keeping records of wrongs with somebody, and you got just an inherent grudge against this person, and now you got important decisions to make. And you got to make these decisions together. Your nursing of your grudge is getting in the way of what's good for those about whom you're making decisions in your community and your church. And don't carry grudges out of this situation. Right? You might not like the way that another leader deals with this decision. Now, this is their first time in a pandemic like this, just like it's yours. So don't keep records of their wrongs. And if you do, you got to ask yourself, okay, do I want God to keep records of my wrongs? And 9th is love does not delight in evil, but it rejoices in the truth. So don't take a perverse joy in criticizing your daycare's response, your local government's response, your workplace's response, your church's response. Don't take a secret delight in seeing people make foolish decisions because you don't like them as a leader or as a board member. All right, there's no place for gossip ever. But right now, secondhand, thirdhand decisions, stories about other people and making decisions, just avoid that. It's just no good comes from that. No good comes from passing that on. And remember, you're becoming a certain type of person. Are you becoming the type of person who delights in grumbling about everything they see that's wrong? Or are you becoming the type of person who delights in what they see that's right? Right? An eternity of grumbling about everything that's wrong, that's hell. An eternity of delighting in everything that's right, that's heaven. So what are you on your What are you on a trajectory toward? 10th, love always protects, or another way to interpret that is love bears all things. So love protects. That means you cover over shame, you cover over weakness, you act as a roof over that. That means you don't advertise the foolish responses of loved ones. And again, people, remember, everybody's your loved one. All right, you don't need to point out that your mom bought 10 cases of toilet paper right now. All right, don't shame her. Talk to her privately about donating them to a food pantry. But you don't advertise the foolish decisions that your employees make. You speak all the good that you can about them, and you correct them privately. And the same mark of love can be understood as love bears all things. We're all going to be dealing with a lot of nonsense from each other. People are going to be dealing with nonsense from me. My wife's already dealt with nonsense from me as a result of stress with this. All right, we're going to need to be bearing more with each other. Now remember, all the nonsense and sin and foolishness that God has been very happy to bear on your behalf. All right, you want God to bear with you. You bear with others. You want others to bear with you. So bear with others. And 12th is love always trusts. Don't interpret other people's comments right now in the worst possible light. Don't imagine that anybody who's got concerns about, overreacting in this situation. Don't by any means assume that these people don't care about the elderly. All right, don't label people as mindless sheep just because they're saying, okay, we need to be doing what our government officials are encouraging us to do. Right? Love doesn't have a suspicious mind about other people's intentions. And love doesn't have a party spirit. Don't take this as an opportunity to bash them, whoever them is. All right, when we're angry, when we're afraid, we tend to blame. All right, blaming Asians because this started in China, or denigrating European medicine because Italy's having difficulties right now. There's no place for that. All that serves to do is merely prop up our own egos. And don't be suspicious about the people you run into day to day. A man might seem to you to have a cavalier attitude about precautions, but okay, maybe this guy owns a business. And this business employs a number of people, and he's rightly concerned about saying, okay, what's the economic impact of all this gonna have on my employees' families? Or that woman at Costco, and she might have a full cart, right? She might have 5 kids. And I was in Costco the other day. I got 4 little kids, and it's like, yeah, I got a grocery cart that's full. I got a grocery cart that's full every time I go to Costco. Right? Somebody sneezes in line behind you at the bank. He might just have a cold. Right? Love always trusts. It doesn't mean that you believe everything, but it certainly means you don't believe the worst. Again, the metric by which you judge, this is the metric that you're inviting God to use upon you. And 13th is love always hopes. You might have any number of criticisms about the American government, about the American church, about humanity in general, but if you're a Christian, you're called to hope for the best response possible. Even if you're the most pessimistic person imaginable, remember what G.K. Chesterton said. He said, hope means hoping when things are hopeless, or it's no virtue at all. As long as matters are really hopeful, hope is merely flattery or platitude. It's only when everything's hopeless that hope begins to be a strength. And 14th, love always perseveres. I've heard some reports that mass gatherings could be discouraged for as many as 8 weeks in Iowa. It's not too hard to keep your cool for 1 day, 2 days, a week. But as weeks go on, we're going to find ourselves more and more frazzled. Again, any number of things could change. But if this continues on, it's a sense of saying, okay, how do I keep showing these marks of 1 Corinthians 13? Because there will be disagreements about how to proceed with all of this. This is new. This is new territory. We can bear these disagreements if we disagree agreeably. In other words, we can persevere together if we extend what Paul talks about as love. It said to the Corinthians, this is how you are united. Any number of disagreements there, but this is how you're to treat others. This is how you want others to treat you. Right? We don't want our relationships to be yet another form of collateral damage from COVID-19. So I hope this walk through 1 Corinthians 13 has been helpful. I know for myself, the way I came up with some of these things is looking at the darkness in my own heart and saying, which ways am I tempted? How do I want to respond?